This is WCPO 9 News.
Thanks for joining us for WCPO 9 News. I'm Tanya O'Rourke. Here's a look at some of today's top stories. Cincinnati's playing a key role in expanding the vaccine to children under 16. The Pfizer trial running at Cincinnati Children's Hospital is now expanding to children 5 to 11 years old. 8 children at the hospital are participating in this phase of the trial. That trial was extended to 16-year-old volunteers in October of last year, then 12 to 15-year-olds later that month. You might recall the hospital was one of the sites which began a clinical trial of the vaccine with adult volunteers in May of 2020. 2 7-year-old girls are recovering after they were hit by a car. You're looking at video from the scene on Vine, not far from the zoo in Avondale. One of those girls is seriously hurt. The other was taken to Cincinnati Children's Hospital for treatment, but is expected to recover quickly. Police say the driver who hit the pair is cooperating with investigators. The Covington officer hurt in a shootout is out of the hospital and now recovering at home. Yesterday, investigators say the officer and a suspect were hurt after shots were fired following a traffic stop in Newport. It all started after police say a restaurant worker called 911 to say a man was waving a gun around the restaurant. Officers say the suspect fired at police after being pulled over along West 4th Street. The responding officer was hit in the arm. The suspect is still in the hospital, but it should survive. Investigators have not released the name of the officer or suspect as of yet. Time to get a check of the forecast. Here's Chief Meteorologist Steve Raleigh. Hi, Steve.
Yeah, hi, Tanya. As we look at things, we're going to see rain around the tri-state, and it'll be heavy at times. Temperatures are going to fall into the middle 40s. It'll be gusty with some winds at times. Then for tomorrow, mostly cloudy, still a little breezy. We have a chance for some showers showing up as well, 51. So a big drop from earlier today, and it just continues. Take a look at the story by tomorrow night. I have 28 when a freeze warning goes into effect. And then on opening day, can you believe it, 39 degrees in my forecast and down to 23, likely another freeze warning then. Finally starts turning around this weekend with more rain chances into next week.
I'm Larry Seward. Blacks are living 10 years less than whites in one Cincinnati suburb. In Ohio, Kaiser Family Foundation research found this century's 9th highest pre-COVID death rate in the country, behind green-colored clusters on maps, a sign of low average age of death. Researchers at Ohio University's Alliance for Population Health found dramatic 31-year average lifespan differences in Hamilton County. And in Springdale, the most recent stats say whites live an average 10 years longer than African Americans.
There are challenges that people face who are African American that I never faced as a white person because I had white privilege, even when I grew up poor.
Health Commissioner Matt Clayton says equity is his department's focus, especially now with COVID-19 highlighting disparities. 2 months before vaccine rollout, more than 35% of all positive COVID-19 tests right here in Springdale were African American, second only to Latinos. 15 weeks later, it's nearly 30%, more than any other race.
If you're not vigilant, if you don't do your research, you're not advocating for yourself, you're subject to be a victim of some type of biased treatment.
Last month, we met minorities who don't live in the city getting shots here. It's part of a strategy to blow up barriers, keeping people from care.
Among our African American population, we have a higher than normal socioeconomic status, but we have a higher rate of preventable disease. And we're also surrounded by diverse communities like Sharonville, Forest Park, Fairfield, and that helps us in terms of getting people in. People are coming in from Lincoln Heights, from Arlington Heights, from as far away as Colerain and Springfield Township. But we're still very concerned about getting African American people to Springdale in to get their vaccine and also answering their questions, making sure that everyone knows that this vaccine is safe, that it's effective, and that they should get the shot as soon as possible.
It is a focus of hospital systems too.
We're not trying to profit as a nonprofit by watching people get sick and letting them come in for assistance.
Bond Secures Mercy is investing millions in housing and other factors in health outcomes, perhaps none bigger than gaps in average age of death. Larry Seward, WCPO 9 News.
I'm Marielle Carbone. Over the last 2 weeks, we've shared several proposals from the city manager's office here in Cincinnati about how she'd like to spend the $290 million in federal stimulus money. But some city leaders are saying those announcements are premature. $5 million to support Black-owned businesses, $4 million for restaurants, $12 million for the arts. Those are just a few of the proposals announced by Mayor John Cranley, outlining how the city manager wants to spend the $290 million in stimulus money it's receiving from the American Rescue Plan. But some say the announcements are premature.
We don't know what the guidelines are or where we can spend the money or where we might not be able to spend the money.
According to the city solicitor's office,
the law itself does not provide much specificity on the use of those funds.
And it's still waiting for exact guidance from the federal treasury on what's allowed. The office hopes to get that in the next few weeks.
The administration and the law department will work closely together once that guidance is released to determine the eligibility of the various funding proposals.
These announcements by the mayor, we're putting the cart before the horse.
The mayor disagrees.
We have enough information. We don't have the fine print published yet, but we know enough to know that these projects are eligible.
There are also still funding proposals by individual city council members to consider outside of the city manager's plan. Not to mention, council has the final say in all of this.
The mayor has no vote in how money is allocated in the city, so it's only city council.
Seelbach is cautioning those who are celebrating the announced funding proposals that things will likely change.
That's the tricky spot that they put us in now, because if we want to fund some of the priorities that we feel are important, we have to cut something that they've recommended.
And public input is another big issue for Seelbach. He says that there wasn't any public engagement prior to the city manager releasing her proposal. Now, the first chance for the public to weigh in will be at the Budget and Finance meeting in 2 weeks, and it's likely that some public hearings will be scheduled again following that. Reporting from City Hall, I'm Marielle Carbone, WCPO 9 News.
The trial for former Minneapolis police officer Derek Chauvin continues today, with witnesses testifying about what they saw the day George Floyd died.
Was there any point in your video, whether it's 9 or 10 minutes, that Mr. Chauvin ever let up or got up off of the neck of Mr. Floyd that you saw?
No, if anything, he actually was kneeling harder. Looked like he was shoving his knee in his neck.
Chauvin faces murder and manslaughter charges. He's accused of causing George Floyd's death in May of 2020, which triggered worldwide protests and calls for justice for George Floyd. The World Health Organization believes the novel coronavirus, which causes COVID-19, probably spread to people through an animal. The WHO believes COVID-19 was only spreading among humans for a month or two before it was noticed in December 2019. 14 governments, including the US, the UK, Australia, Canada, Japan, Norway, and the Republic of Korea, have expressed concern with the WHO's report. They are calling for an independent, transparent, and accessible evaluation into the origins of COVID-19 in China.
There are steps from here that we believe should be taken. There's a second stage in this process that we believe should be led by international and independent experts. They should have unfettered access to data. They should be able to ask questions of people who are on the ground.
The report from the World Health Organization also found that it's extremely unlikely that the virus was introduced into society through a laboratory incident. Additional Customs and Border Protection agents are being sent to the U.S.-Mexico border to provide support amid an influx in migrants. According to government data, Border Patrol agents encountered more than 100,000 migrants in February alone.
Going to summer camp is a rite of passage for many kids. Last year, COVID forced many camps to remain closed, but this year is shaping up to be different, as reservations at summer camps are already up. For 13-year-old Piper Warner, home is with her family, and then there's summer camp.
It's almost like your second home.
That second home is here at Apple Farm Arts Camp, a charter school that turns into an overnight stay arts camp in the summer. But last summer, during what would have been the camp's 60th year, COVID restrictions made it impossible to open. Piper's mom, Nicole Warner.
I mean, it was hard because, like, summer camp is part of who she is.
I was pretty disappointed.
But this year,
So we just got a green light.
Corey Solomon is the executive director of the camp in southern New Jersey. She says while the governor gave summer camps the go-ahead, Apple Farms will only be operating at 50% capacity.
We've had a planning committee happening since last summer to figure out what do we need to do to ensure children could safely come here for our overnight at camp experience.
According to the American Camp Association, across the country, only a handful of states so far are not allowing overnight summer camps this year. But in several other states, it's more complex and left up to each individual county to decide. Where summer camps are happening,
Our phone is ringing off the hook.
demand appears strong, not just from kids.
I was like, oh my gosh, wow, this is great. I'm like so excited for this.
But especially their parents.
I saw it come up and I was like, oh, summer camp, yes, you're going, like, click, 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 send.
And for the Warner family, a chance to return to something familiar.
My husband had been diagnosed with colon cancer last year, so on top of him being sick, she just lost this, and this was what she looked forward to. He's healthy again, he's great, but now knowing that she has this place to turn to this summer and reconnect with all the things she lost is really going to be amazing.
A summer experience that's waiting just around the corner. In Elmer, New Jersey, I'm Maya Rodriguez.
There's been a series of high-profile hate crimes aimed at Asian Americans around the country in recent weeks. Now a trained martial artist is offering lessons in self-defense to help potential victims gain more self-confidence.
They are scared, they want to be equipped, they want to learn self-defense.
From pushing an elderly person in the back in the Bay Area to a string of shootings at massage parlors in Metro Atlanta, attacks on Asian Americans across the country have Yune Mello more concerned for her safety.
With the recent events, it's very disheartening.
Despite the physical violence directed at her community, Mello refuses to live in fear.
My heart is for there be more unity and more self-confidence.
Now she's learning how to better protect herself by training in martial arts.
It could be something as simple as like an arm lock, or even hitting them in vulnerable parts of their body that can help save you and even save your life.
Katerina Buenviave is the founder of Kicks, a nonprofit teaching self-defense classes online for free.
In light of the recent events that have been happening with the Asian American community, we wanted to just open it up to just all community members through Zoom.
These workouts focus on the fundamentals of Taekwondo. And while Kicks does teach people how to fight for themselves, Buenviave says the best defense is actually avoiding conflict.
Instead of learning how to retaliate, we learn how to de-escalate situations to promote unity and peace and nonviolence.
For Mello, training with Kicks has helped her both physically and mentally.
It's not just about, punches and kicks, but also the mindset of self-confidence and being able to defend yourself if needed be.
And with more people now looking to learn self-defense, Kicks is adding more classes for all backgrounds.
Front leg roundhouse.
The least that I could do is just bring some sort of knowledge and skill and awareness and empower the different communities.
I'm Kai Beach reporting.
As the cannabis industry grows across the U.S., researchers are looking into the carbon footprint of the plant, but some farms, like the one here, are finding a way to remain environmentally friendly.
On the western slope of the Rocky Mountains sits a cannabis farm 8,200 feet in elevation. When there's still snow on the ground, you have to take a buggy up the muddy road to get there.
We're going to drive up this road, make a couple corners, and you'll see the fence of the grow and the whole plantation and all that.
Awesome. The trek was maybe a bit muddier than we expected, But once you're at the top, you have mountain views and a whole lot of green. Pot Zero is owned by Rob Trotter and his wife.
The zero part of it is that we are zero carbon footprint. And that's kind of a big deal, I think, in the marijuana world these days, because folks are going to start to find out that the indoor growing and greenhouse growing is extremely energy consumptive.
Pot Zero is a once-a-year outside grow. Vegetative growth is 3 inches per day in the middle of summer because of the sun's high intensity at their elevation. But cannabis grown indoors is a whole other world.
You can control that indoor climate so well that you can really dictate the product.
Research on the environmental impact of cannabis grown indoors has been quite limited, but a new study led by graduate student Haley Summers is uncovering the carbon footprint of the rapidly growing cannabis industry in the U.S.
We found that generally your climate control systems, so your heating, ventilation, and air conditioning, were the largest source of emissions, and then it was high-intensity grow lights, and then a material input of carbon dioxide. So carbon dioxide is actually pumped into indoor facilities to increase photosynthetic rates, so to get your plants to grow bigger, faster, and just generate more product.
When mapping the regions with the highest greenhouse gas emissions, Haley says the Colorado Rockies and Midwest were more concentrated than coastal areas.
But the weather plays a big role because plants need a constant supply of fresh air, and that fresh air comes from the outside. So if you're in Colorado, for example, and it's cold, you have to treat that air to get it to be comfortable for the plant, and that takes a lot of energy.
But what if that energy came from a renewable source? This is called a hydroelectric turbine. Rob says it's been powering his farm since 1993.
It drops 170 feet from a quarter mile up above to here. So it's as if you're 170 feet down in the ocean right now. Your pressure at that point would be about 70 pounds of pressure.
He says the energy from the turbine is what powers all his lights and fans, 28 years for his home and 6 years for Pot Zero. Rob says he hopes other pot growers will follow his lead, especially considering they would save money in the process. With photojournalist Luis Ramirez, I'm Elizabeth Ruiz reporting.
The IRS says expect economic impact payments for those who don't normally file a tax return to be issued this week. Internal Revenue officials say the majority of those particular payments will be sent electronically. The IRS has begun reviewing and testing tons of millions of records to ensure eligibility and proper calculation of the payments. Some current and former college students are getting another financial break from President Joe Biden. The White House is keeping payment of educational loans on hold for more than 1 million borrowers. This pause does not apply to those who have not defaulted on their loans. Congressional Democrats have called on Biden to forgive $50,000 in federal student loan debt per borrower, but the president has been resistant to that action.
Hi there, I'm Chief Meteorologist Steve Raleigh. Looking for the rain around the tri-state as we continue into the early overnight. Temperatures will be in the mid-40s. For tomorrow, we start feeling that cold air behind the front moving through. Just 51. That's about a 20-degree drop from earlier today. As we head into tomorrow night, I'm looking at temperatures in the mid to upper 20s. Consequently, we've got a freeze warning out for tomorrow night into Thursday morning from the National Weather Service. Plan now. As we head to Thursday and opening day, yikes, temperatures are going to be just frigid. I'm looking at upper 30s for the ball game, and then even colder as we head through the game itself under partly cloudy skies. Here's my 9-day forecast then. So it's 51 to 39. Temperatures turn around as we head to Friday afternoon and get warmer for the weekend. Another chance for rain as we head into the middle of next week.
Maybe you've had the Mondays before, but what about the Sunday scaries?
That's that really crazy, anxious feeling that you get on Sunday nights.
Dr. Maria Church, author of Love-Based Leadership, has a few tips on how to not only survive, but thrive in a fear-based workplace. Starting with reconnect with your why.
There's something that propelled you to fill out the application. Something was there that energized you to do the interview.
Ask yourself why you wanted that job in the first place and write down those reasons.
Then it makes it not just bearable, but can actually make it enjoyable.
Next, leverage your skills in other ways.
It just infuses this new, vibrant, exciting kind of energy into the work that they're doing.
If you're artistic, but you don't get to show it, ask if you can do something creative.
A lot of organizations are actually doing this very formally now by creating skills matrices.
Skill matrices keep track of employees' different skills that can be used elsewhere in the company.
So it really is like a win-win for the people that get to do something that they're really good at.
At number 3, if things are really getting to you, don't forget to take a break.
Over 50% of the U.S. workforce did not use all their vacation days.
And 10% of Americans don't even take any days off.
We're experiencing burnout, lack of productivity.
So use those days, whether it's the occasional 3-day weekend or a midweek break.
And when you're done with work, be done with work. Unplug.
Finally, be authentically you.
When we're not authentically you, that means that we are intentionally trying to be someone that someone else thinks we should be.
This can lead to resentment and burnout, so don't be scared to be you.
We want different ideas and different perspectives so that we can do our job better.
Learning how to leave the fear behind at work.
We're closing in on what's normally prom season for high school seniors, but for a second year, there's a lot of discussion over whether it's safe for proms to happen. Guidelines vary from school to school and from state to state. That means every district will have its own solution. For many, prom will be canceled once again.
Nothing is going to compare to a prom.
Across the country, some parents and students are pushing back by planning non-school sponsored events.
We are aware that there's a prom celebration that's being planned out in the community.
One parent in Arizona is concerned about these private gatherings.
I think it's reckless. I really do. I feel like we're not in a safe place still.
Other schools are working with students to find safer ways to celebrate, like in Jensen Beach, Florida.
As a group of officers, we've been proposing ideas that we think would get approved by the district.
The CDC has not issued an exact guidance for proms, but it encourages all large events to happen virtually or outdoors.